All right, today is July 5th, 2024. We're going to decode Exodus 7 and talk about some chemistry. All right, go back and watch Exodus 6 if you're not caught up with the chapter decodes, where we go chapter by chapter, line by line, word by word. You won't get that anywhere else, or at least not that many places, word by word, because most people will get too bored and click off. But we do some cool decodes and pull up some cool verses and parallels, and we talk about all that kind of fun stuff. So stick with it. And you can't count on the notifications or the algorithms to send my videos, even if you're subscribed. So you got to check in every week. Check in every Friday or Saturday. 90% guaranteed to upload something unless I'm taking a break or unless I'm canceled. Or gotta, get a strike is what I mean. But if I get a third strike, then I'm pretty much out. So canceled. Okay, got a lot of ground to cover, so stick with it. Bear with me. Here we go. Exodus 7:1. And the Lord said unto Moses, See, I have made thee a god unto Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. And thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, and he send the children of Israel out of this land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. All right, so I was curious on how many times Pharaoh's heart was hardened, or if he hardened his own heart, or if God complimented that because he hardened his own heart. And I pulled up some sites and I got different calculations. So I guess from this point on, I'll start tallying this stuff, and then hopefully at the end, I can give you what I found. Maybe even I just go through and read it ahead of time and check them out. Um, I know that there's some sites that say that in the first 5 plagues that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. I read an article on that, and then the last 5 that God hardened his heart. He complimented that. But we see quickly here on 7:3 Exodus that God's even pertaining to hardening Pharaoh's heart. So Pharaoh's not doing it himself off the cusp. So that site or that video or that article is debunked. Um, but one thing's for sure, that there is a mixture of the two. There are times that Pharaoh hardens his heart, and then there are times where he says Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And I believe that is it is complimenting Pharaoh's original feeling. I think that God does that in various ways. I think that, if you're an angry person, you'll get more angry, coming your way, whether it's within you or whether it's coming from the outside of you. God compliments everything that we do. If we gives us what we wish, be careful what you wish for. Um, and I believe we see that with Pharaoh. Right? You're an angry person, you're going to get angry circumstances. And I think the New Age, the whole secret and all that crap, here's another thing that they stole from the Bible. These little things that, you know, that are plucked and taken from Scripture. And everything, of all that stuff, again, I'll say it again and again and over. What it's missing is the middleman, and the middleman is God. And I know that's probably a poor analogy for it because he's the above man, or not even above God. But what I'm saying is all that stuff is missing godliness, and it's to serve yourself. I hate to stray, but don't get lost in that stuff. Well, all we need is Scripture in the Bible. Fact is, God is predestiny or predestined, and we are not. Either way we look at it, God wrote the end from the beginning and knew us before we were born. So we have to look at things from a moral perspective, right? From a three-dimensional linear choice perspective. To us, it hasn't happened yet. You know, we're here to find out the why we made that choice, correct? versus God knows all things. He's outside of our linear time, our linear thought aspect of things. If that makes any sense to you. And you can find all that stuff in Corinthians, about predestiny and God and all that stuff. It's not something that I'm making up. So at the same time, God's heart, God hardened his heart. And then at the same time, from Pharaoh's perspective, he's figuring out why his heart is being hardened. It goes hand in hand. And I think that's the reason why we have that interchangeable thing going on, because we're not looking at it from God's point of view. And so you see that switch from God's point of view to our point of view, from outside of time to inside of time. Anyway, all right. All right, Exodus 7:4. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt and bring forth my armies, my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. I want to hold off right there again. We talked about the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end. Right, that's throughout the Bible. Those are actual verses that you can find. And I've talked about how the beginning of the Bible is a summary of the end. And I explained it in great detail, or at least in detail, in the last video and then former videos. I bring that up because astrologically, Moses can be seen as the water bearer, right? As Aquarius. And that would parallel with end times, right? So that's what you see. You see a changing or a crashing of an old civilization, an old timeline, and entering into a new one. So you see that with tribulation, right? You have to destroy something for something else to grow and be good, and be new, for something else to be there, right? So that's exactly what you see. And then you see the parallel, the freeing of God's people through this and also through Revelation. So the same thing, the forces of evil in this world are not letting us go so easy. So you see that parallel. And then I think what solidifies that parallel is Moses. Moses is allegorically the water bearer, right? Entering us into destroying one land, one era, and going into another one. It's a parallel of the future, just like Isaac and the ram or the lamb. Remember, that was caught in the thicket. Isaac was supposed to be sacrificed, as Abraham led him up to be sacrificed, and then God stopped him before it happened. And a ram took its place to be sacrificed. And a ram is a lamb, right? And it was caught in the thicket. And at that time, we were in Gemini, but it was a foreshadowing of things to come when Jesus would be here. So at the end of Jesus' age, when he would be sacrificed, it was in the astrological sign. I pull that stuff up like that, but of Aries, which is a ram. And then when he died, we went into Pisces, right? Ushering in the new age, just like Moses will be ushering in the new age, allegorically speaking, right? Remember, Moses and Aaron resemble also the two witnesses. And then this whole scrimmage between Pharaoh and Moses is a parallel of Revelation. And in Revelation, you have right before the people are freed, God's people, actually, what I'm saying, you get God's people. Well, there's the wrath saints. I won't even call them the tribulation saints anymore, because we've studied that and we've seen before wrath comes, God's people get pulled out. But there will be God's people during wrath as well, meaning people will be converted to God. No, at least that's what it seems like so far. I don't know. I wasn't there. But my point is that you see the same parallels. You see two witnesses then, and then in this one you have two witnesses. In Exodus, you have two witnesses, allegorical witnesses. I know it's kind of confusing. Doing the best I can, man. So bear with me. So what I'm saying is, I'll clarify it for you. So Moses is allegorically Aquarius, and the whole story of Exodus is allegorically Revelation. Okay, we get the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end. So you see, these things are interchangeable. They're the same thing. They're just explained a little bit differently. So you see a lot of end time parallels in Exodus from the beginning, and I'll show you another one as we go along. A couple of them. All right, Exodus 7:5. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel. And I know that this is a reoccurring verse. I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt. There's just like with a strong arm, with a strong hand, or stretch forth my hand. And I'm trying to think, like, what is this? Why does God keep on repeating this in his word? And I did a little digging to see if there was something to it. And I didn't really have to go very far. And we see right here in Exodus 13:9. So I just typed in strong hand and see what pops up. See, I like to base everything off of like the law of first mention, or if there's a reoccurring theme going on, we can find the keys to what God's really trying to tell us. And in Exodus 13:9, again, like I was just talking about the parallels. I keep on wanting to call them parallels because I've been saying Pharaoh so dang long. All day today in my head, I've been reading about Pharaoh, and it's like parallels. Anyways, Exodus 13:9, and it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. That the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with the strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. So I found this very coincidental. Very coincidental. um, this is talking about the mark, right? God's mark, or the sealing, and how we talked about the rapture videos, that God's people were sealed. And you see that with a strong hand, and you see that same parallel in Exodus, sealing God's people and Moses exiting them out of Egypt. And the strong hand is equated to the Lord's law. That's a pretty cool parallel. All right. Exodus 7:6. And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded them, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spake unto Pharaoh. So let's check out what those numbers mean. Sorry. I guess I can get rid of that tab. All right, 40. The number 40 appears 158 times, 140 times, 145 times in the King James Bible verses. Okay, 158 times and 145 verses. This breaks down to 134 occurrences in the Old Testament, 24 times in the New. The number 40 generally symbolizes a period of testing, trial, or probation. So that suits Moses, right? So obviously you can see a connection of numbers and the main characters. Okay, let's check out the number 43. The English phrase 40 and 3 used for the number 43 is recorded 3 times in 3 King James Bible verses, found once in the book of Numbers, Ezra, and Nehemiah. The possible meanings of the number 43 is derived from facts about the Bible and the history that underpins the writings. The book number 43 in the KJV translation and most modern biblical translation is the Gospel of John. It was penned in 42 AD. Then the same year, the Gospel of Mark was also recorded. John's account is unique, that a large portion of the book conveys teachings reserved only for the Lord's closest disciples. And you can see that Aaron was a close disciple of Moses. So it kind of suits Moses. I checked all this stuff out earlier. I didn't see any home runs, but we'll leave it at that. All right. Upward and onward. Aaron's rod becomes a serpent. Okay, Exodus 7:8. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then shall say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and shall become a serpent. All right, so far that I've studied so far is that this rod that Moses and Aaron are possessing is one rod. All right, so there's a lot of articles saying that it's Moses, Aaron's, God's, but if you read it, they're using the same rod, and it belongs to the wielder of the rod, and that's verified or justified in Mithras. Um, but that's what it seems like. Whoever's possessing the rod, is claiming the ownership of it. And I know a lot of people. I've seen videos where people say they have their own rods and stuff like that, or it's Aaron's rod or whatever. It's the wielder's rod so far. I could be wrong, but I'm not. I'm just so. It just seems that way so far. I got to do some more reading on it, but I guarantee it is. Okay. Exodus 7:10. And Moses and Aaron went unto Pharaoh, and they did so, as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. See, Aaron is in charge of the rod right now, so it's calling it Aaron's rod. And then later on, Moses will be handling the rod, and it'll say Moses' rod. And it'll even verify, in a second, I'll show you, it'll verify it's the same rod. And Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. Ooh. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents, but Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. So this is where the law of first mention applies, that we see the rod and serpents becoming synonymous. And the serpent is symbolic for chastisement and edification, right? Edification of the law. God's law supersedes all their laws. That's why the serpent ate up all the other serpents, because God's law, his edification, his chastisement is above all. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goeth out unto the water. And thou shalt stand by the river's brink against he come. And the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thy hand. See right here? Here's the passing on of the same rod. It's verified right here. And we'll pay attention throughout the verses as we go along to see if there's two different rods. But clearly it's the same rod, obviously, because it represents God's chastisement, edification, God's rulership, God's law. So therefore it would be the same rod. And the fact that I think it emphasizes on specific people, like at some point it'll say God's rod, or some point it'll say Moses, some point it'll say Aaron's. I think there's something to that we have to figure out. And I haven't figured it out yet. I just thought about it earlier today, and I was just thinking maybe it symbolizes Jews, Gentiles. I don't know. So there's something to it for sure. Something to look forward to or look into. Okay, Exodus 7:16. And thou shalt say unto him, the Lord God of the Hebrews hath sent me unto thee, saying, let my people go, and they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Exodus 7:17. And the Lord, thus saith the Lord, in this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. Okay, so this is another parallel verse with Revelation. These things are undeniable. So in Revelation 16:3 and 4, we see this blood water. I got a better one on that. All right. And the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man. Every living soul died in the sea. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and the fountains of the waters, and they became blood. Okay? So there's a direct connection there that you can't dispute. All right? And right here it says, and the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink of the water of the river. And then right over here, it says, every living soul dieth in the sea. Okay? Connections. Forget about it. All right. Exodus 7:19. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying unto Aaron, take thy rod. See, it's the same rod. Take thy rod, and stretch out thy hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon the rivers, upon their ponds, and upon their pools of water. They may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and vessels of stone. And we see that right here. Pour the vial upon the rivers and the fountains and the waters, and they became blood. That's a pretty descriptive parallel. All right, Exodus 7:20, and Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord commanded, and he lifted up the rod, right, and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river. There was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And right here, it doesn't say that God hardened his heart. It just says Pharaoh's heart was hardened. So we don't know if God behind it doing it or Pharaoh's doing it himself. But just like I said before, the whole predestiny thing, it's just what it is, right? Pharaoh's realizing why he's hardening his heart. And God's complimenting that hardened heart of his. And Pharaoh turned, okay, Exodus 7:23, and Pharaoh turned and went into his house. Neither did he set his heart to this also. Wow. A lot of heart talk, huh? Sounds like a heart-to-heart conversation. I'm having a hard time reading this stuff. That's enough. Okay. Exodus 7:24, and all the Egyptians digged around the river for water to drink, for they could not drink of the water of the river. Sounds just like Revelation. And 7 days were fulfilled. After that, the Lord had smitten the river. 7 days were fulfilled. After that, the Lord had smitten the river. Okay, so they bust out the 7 days were fulfilled. Why 7 days? It just reminds me of Numbers. After the number, okay, this is Numbers 14:34. After the numbers of the days in which ye searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall you bear your iniquities. Every 40 years you shall know my breach of promise. All right? So a day for every year, or a year. Yeah, a day for a year. So you get that same thing. You get that same rule or that same law here. 7 days were fulfilled. What I'm pertaining this to is what? What did we just go over? The parallel of Revelation. What's Revelation about? The 7-year tribulation. So we get another parallel of it. And 7 days were fulfilled. After that, the Lord had smitten the river, a day for a year. Yeah, so a day for a year. So each day is a year. After the number of days in which ye searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall you bear your iniquities. Even 40 years you shall know my breach of promise. I didn't explain that right the first time around. But yeah, a day for a year, or a year for a day. Better said, right? I think it's a parallel. I think there's plenty of Revelation parallels. This almost sounds like I'm reading it out of Revelation. Right? The second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and the fountains and the waters, and they became blood. And I heard the angels of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and was, shall be, because thou hast judged thus. For they have shed the blood of the saints and the prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink. For they are worthy, just like the Egyptians of that time. I think it's a home run. I think it's undeniable of the parallels with Revelation. That's all I have right now on this particular chapter. I thought this chapter was pretty cool, man, and I hope you liked it. Now we can go on to the next segment of this video. And I hope you guys understand that even just those little quick decodes, some of them are not even that quick. They require a lot of preparation and a lot of research. Um, that's like I have when I started doing this, I have a newfound appreciation for ministers, like church ministers that you know that go verse by verse. Man, it's a lot of work, a lot of preparation. It's almost like a full-time job. So yeah. Anyway, and it wasn't just that particular chapter. It's these are the thoughts that go through my head since day one. Like, man, it is. I spend probably most of my time studying the word, and also, I don't spend that much time setting the videos up. Besides, like a few hours of the day that I do it. I pull up all the tabs and I go searching. Today I spent like 6 hours doing it, but usually only like 2 or 3 hours. Except movie decodes take all day, unfortunately. But chapter decodes, like the Bible, the preparation, the the research and the study, that takes all week. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks. That's why like I hold off on a couple of, because I haven't found the deep, or like it hasn't been revealed to me the deep rich information that's locked in it or that's hidden within. And sometimes they take a couple weeks just for one chapter. Usually within a week I can bust out the chapter, and that's just replaying over and over, or reading the entire book over and over and over within that week. Usually I'm going over the chapter over and over and over and meditating on it, praying, God, show me this and that. And God always delivers, but I just want to let you guys know that there's a lot of work. So watch these videos, man. No one watched the last one, which the last one, it took me a long time to do. There wasn't many nuggets in it, but I still managed to to pull something out, and nobody watched it. I was like, man, all that hard work for nothing. Anyways, anywho, so to the second half of this video, this is for unbelievers. Okay, got to catch up on my notes. I told you a couple videos back that I'm going to pick out topics in life and show you God in them. My strong suit is the Bible, the Word, and probably like exposing, like wickedness and occult movies and music, or media, but mainly the Word. Like I love researching and reading the Bible and diving deep in it. Those are my strong suits, but like outside of that stuff, I use a lot of other people's stuff. Like this particular subject, because it's not. I don't really know much about chemistry. Like when it comes down to chemists, like basic knowledge. Yeah, I got that down, I guess. Or when it comes to botany, or when it comes to mathematics, I'm not a mathematician, but I know a lot of stuff about math, or I know a lot of biblical connections to math, or I know a lot of Hebrewic connections to math. So yeah, I will go into other people's articles. I will go watch other people's videos, but it's for the sake of the kingdom. It's for the sake of saving souls. This stuff is um, not mine, but I do add to it, and I do research it, and I do fact check it. And I'll show you that I fact check this stuff too. And once you start like scratching at it, right, it opens up a whole new world, and more things just start coming. And I start receiving more information from God about that subject that I didn't even know anything about. um, but these are things that I've studied previously, not into crazy depth, but I've researched throughout the years that, you know, I have to re-research. These are things that help me build my own faith. And I know these kind of topics are going to help somebody else build their faith. And that's the whole main port. Main port. It's the main port of this. It's the main part of this Bible study, this whole ministry, I guess you would call it, is to be a fisher of men, is to convince an unbeliever to believe, to show them God and whatever it takes. And so we're on the subject of subjects, right? Of exposing God in chemistry, exposing God in mathematics, and exposing God in whatever corner of life that you want to talk about. In the last video, or the video before last, we talked about God and DNA and how we find Yahweh in DNA. Go back and watch those videos if you haven't watched them. I'm not going to go over them again. Just go back and watch them. And that's another thing too. Like, I do recurring videos, so like if you don't watch the last one, sometimes you're going to be left in the dust. Anywho, those are these are the kind of videos that helped me personally, or helped build my faith. Even though it's when it comes to faith building, it's found in the Word. We read the Bible. But this is before I even was a full devout, bought believer, saved. And I was just still trying to figure out if I even believed in God or whatever, which I kind of always felt like I did. Even as a child, it was really strong, really, really, really strong. But then life happens, and then we kind of drift away. But I know the things that helped me was, finding God in topics. And I want to share some of those topics with you. And I have to relearn all this stuff. So as I go along showing you this stuff is, a lot of it's new information to me, because I know I've seen it, I know I've studied, I know I've heard it a decade ago, but sometimes we have to relearn, especially if we're not, focusing on this kind of stuff. And yeah, so here we are. As I typed in chemistry and God, this young lady's video popped up. Her name's Mia Denoto. Proof the Bible is inspired by God is the name of the video. You can find her on YouTube. I can't justify or attest for the kind of ministry channel she has. That's the only video I've ever seen. And like I said, it popped up today, but I thought it was kind of cool and I wanted to share with people. And I'm not going to use her video, unfortunately, because I'm on my last strike. If I get another strike, as the strikes dissipate, I will use more people's videos, or I'll cut more movie decodes and stuff like that. But for the time being, I got to do what I got to do, and I'll try to justify and explain her video the best I can. So bear with me, and I hope, if you're an unbeliever, I hope that you get something from this. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have any topic that you want to talk about, leave them in the comments. Okay. Where this journey started was this recent journey started was a conversation at work. Again, it was with an unbeliever, and me and my buddy are both believers, and it's few and far between because I live in Catholic, in the Catholic motherland, right? And you know what Catholicism does. The majority of people who dive into Catholicism end up becoming unbelievers, and they're jaded by religion, and they look at all religions through those jadeful eyes, right? And being, you know, a blood-bought believer, being saved in Christ, we know that it's day and night. Being a Christian and a Catholic is day and night. And so that's the atmosphere, the environment that I live in. So it's few and far between to find brothers and sisters in Christ. But I did find a brother, and we're trying to have this conversation with an unbeliever, and this guy is kind of funny, and he's a real cool guy, and so he's not really like, he doesn't like try to like, fight it or anything like that, or like, I've been in conversations where it escalated real quick. When you talk about God or God in the world, a lot of people are hurt, and they always bring up a specific situation that hurt them, that made them shy away from God. And it's usually somebody dying, or somebody's, gets touched, or where was God? Where were you? You know, where was, they blame God for a lot of their downfalls because they don't understand the word. They don't understand the world that we live in. They don't understand what it costs for a freedom of thought, freedom of choice, right? And that cost our fall. That's the reason why we're here. That's the reason why evil is allowed to exist for a time being. And they don't realize it's an appointed time. It's that your free choice. It was paid. It was paid by all of us, and we all fell, and in the garden is what I'm attesting to. you know by one man's sin we're all guilty. It's because we all came from that one man, um, and by one man we will be saved, and that's Jesus Christ. But people don't understand those aspects of the word. They don't get it. um, and I try to do videos so they can get it. If you want freedom of thought, freedom of choice, right, that comes with the price. That comes with the price of sin. That is sin, the realm of sin. And this is where we make that choice. It's not harder than that, you know? Because think about it. If God currently ruled this place, well, there goes your freedom of choice. When God comes, we've made the decision. That's when that choice is made. Um, I'm not saying you won't have freedom of thought, but you won't want to have evil thoughts. You won't want to have, um, you know, that freedom goes hand in hand with sin. It's the forbidden fruit. It's this realm. It's this place. It's this fallen realm. And when God comes back, we've made that choice. We've made our decision. There's no more duality in thought. We're singular with God. We're one with God. I'm not saying we are God. I'm just saying from a thought point of view, our thoughts will be on God. And for us believers, it's already like that. The moment that we're saved, we're no longer living in that sinful duality nature. We're living with God. We already made that choice, right? And we're no longer figuring out why we made that choice. We made the choice and we're living with it. We've already crossed that parallel. And for the unbeliever, you're still trying to figure out why. That freedom of thought, that freedom of choice comes with the price. So you better make the right one. And that price, we live through it every day. We die a little bit every day. It comes with sickness. It comes with age. It comes with all that, all the elements of this realm. But with God, all tears will be wiped from our eyes. All right. So on the topic of chemistry, okay, chemistry here. Before I get to the atom, which sounds a lot like Adam, I'll get to the realms of breathing. Right. We can find God in just our breath. Right. The Bible talks about the breath of life, the breath of God, Jesus breathing on us. And, Jesus will breathe on Satan, and that's how Satan will be destroyed. It's the breath is very important. breathing, inhaling and exhaling, is almost a symbolic parallel of the tree of life and the tree of death, the duality nature that we're stuck in, right? And then oxygen, that's something we'll touch on in a minute with this decode. And then an atom, the atom molecule sounds a lot like atom, right? And I think it's no coincidence. And there are, a couple of components to an atom that make its existence: a proton, electron, and a neutron, which is three, right? Like the Trinity make atom. And for the longest time, the atom was like, the smallest source of energy or whatever, until they split the atom, right? And that's how we get nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is a reaction in which the nucleus of an atom splits into two or more of the smaller nuclei, right? And it's kind of weird that if you've been watching the movie decodes or tools for the movie decodes, that we see a lot of this whole split thing going on with splitting the human, right? And inserting the demonic possession. And we've talked about this, other channels have talked about this, of the, splitting the mind and possessing it. That's what a lot of the whole DNA ritual was all about. The whole vid thing was all about. Um, I won't go into further detail about that, but we can even see that they even split the atom, like atom. You can see these rituals run deep. All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen in this video. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of her video, but I'm also going to go into pretty in-depth detail, and I will fact check the things that the young lady touches on, just so the unbelievers don't believe that, all this stuff is just pseudoscience, that it's actual factual things that you can look up. All right, so we'll start with the nucleus. No, I'm just kidding. With carbon, right? All right, so in this video, she claims that carbon has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And it's also coincidentally the sixth element on the elemental chart. Okay? And all things in our world around us are essentially made of carbon or have carbon in them. With that so being said, symbolically, that represents life or the world, right? The 666 matrix that's all around us, right? If all things, right here says the most abundant of the 2 stable isotopes of carbon, carbon 13, another amounting carbon 12 is referring to 98.93 of the element carbon on Earth, 98.93% of the element. Its abundance is due to the tri-alpha process by which is created in the stars. And we've done decodes on this where the stars are connected to the offspring of Abraham, right? And everybody's an offspring of Abraham. And it's also equated scientifically that the Earth is comprised of stardust, the dust of the Earth, correct? And those, I'm also implementing my own discoveries with this as I go along, as those were. Um, but back to the 666 matrix, if carbon is a big percentage of the chemical makeup of the body, of biology, of everything, essentially, that biblically, biblically, it symbolically represents life or the world around us, right? The 666 matrix. And biblically, the number 6 means imperfection, kind of a fallen state, correct? And also, we get from the Bible the 666 pertaining to a man, right? And he caused it all, this is from her video, he caused it all to worship him. And she alludes, which you have to read between the lines, that the man is the creation, right? We're not the creator. We are part of the creation, and how it causes all to worship. So we're worshiping the creation, the world around us, the matrix. That's truly, the mark, or that's, you know, the imperfect state that we're currently in. All right. So carbon has four. Look at these are fact checking articles that I pulled up. Carbon 12, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. She's not making this stuff up. It's legit. Carbon, 18.5% carbon has four bonding sites for other atoms, which makes it the key atom for organic chemistry. Carbon chains are used to build carbohydrates, fats, nucleic acids, and proteins. Breaking bonds with carbon is an energy source. All right. So, what this article is, the human body. These are the main components to, to the human body: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. And these are the three components. The reason why these three components are brought up: oxygen, which is we're going over, nitrogen, and carbon, is because these are more abundant throughout the entirety of the world than any other thing. And hydrogen, of course. The elemental thing for hydrogen is one, and you can even look at that, which I'm going to do some more studying on hydrogen, as being connected to God himself, right? Being water, the source of life, before, you know, um, before the Trinity, which the Trinity is always there, but you know what I'm saying. Okay. Okay, here we go again. About 99% of the mass of the human body is made up of 6 elements. Isn't that weird? 99%, which is here's your 666 in a weird way. But there you go. There's part of the whole 666 realm that we're in, even all the way down to our body. It's it's truly in everything. That's the realm that we live in. It's found in everything. Even the draconian distances of the sun and the moon and the stars, they all have these weird 6s and 9 components to them. It's because that's the realm we're in. It's just going to be like that. Here is wisdom, right? Once you know that you're in the 666 realm, that it's literally encoded all the way down to the chemical compounds of the world around you. It's literally in it. All right, so those 6 elements are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. And this whole chart kind of reminds me of Daniel's dream. The bronze, the gold age, the I just thought that was kind of funny, but there might be something to it. I don't know. I don't know. Uh, Yeah, that's the human body. And then when it comes to carbon, nitrogen, and uh, oxygen, those are the three compounds or components that are the majority of the world around us. They're found, and I'll explain it too as we go along. So I'll show you. That's why these three are important. That's why she brings up these three. I was like, why those three? Why those three components? Why not something else? Why not argon or something like that? Because the majority of the world is comprised of those three components. All right, so I numbered, I added the number of 6 plus 6 plus 6, and we get the number 18, right? So as we studied in the occult, or not the occult, but the tools for decoding the occult, right? We talked about the number 18 at times, referring that to be another way of saying 666, right? The English word 18 used for the number 18 is recorded 22 times in 22 King James Bible verses. The significance of the number 18 in the Bible comes partly from the symbolic meaning of bondage. See, the world that we live in is imperfect, and we all feel bound to this place. We're in chains, right? You can even break down the word cell, right? It was named after the Christian monks living in these little small quarters that were called cells, right? The irony of that, even down to the cells in our skin, are named after small, confined places, right? Just like bondage, just like somebody in prison. All right, so the other element she talked about was nitrogen. And nitrogen has 7 protons, 7 neutrons, 7 electrons, and it's the seventh element. Okay, so I fact checked it, and sure enough, and we see it right here. Nitrogen is the seventh element in the periodic table and has the symbol of N, the atomic number of 7. All right, nitrogen has 7 protons, 7 neutrons in its nucleus, and 7 electrons in 2 shells. Okay, Okay, so nitrogen consists of 78% of the atmosphere, and it's tied and it's connected to oxygen, air, right? It's up there in the atmosphere with air. And it's essential to life, and it's essential to photosynthesis. Synthesis. Okay, I'll go over some of this stuff. Nitrogen is essential for all living things because it's a major part of the amino acids, which are the building blocks of the proteins and the nucleic acids, such as DNA, which transfers genetic information to subsequent generations of organisms. About 78% of the atmosphere is made of nitrogen. But plants and animals can't take nitrogen directly from the air. A process called nitrogen cycle makes it happen. They bind to bacteria, and that seeps into the soil, grows into the plants, and they eat it, and we eat them, and yeah, there's this symbiotic cycle with nitrogen that's definitely important for all living things, right? 7 biblically is perfection. It's God's number of creation, and we all know by now that 7 is connected to God, right? All right, so let's go to oxygen. Oxygen has 8 protons, 8 electrons, 8 neutrons, and it's the 8th element. This young lady goes on to say that in gematria, 8, 8, 8, the Greek gematria breaks down to, in Greek, Jesus, the gematria in Greek is 888, and that's Jesus, right? So if you don't know what gematria is, it's the alphanumerical number of the alphabet, right? Alpha. So the numerical number in the Greek of Jesus comes out to 888. Right? So I took it a step further and I was like, okay, well, let's check out the Hebrew. Why not, right? So the Chet. Let's see what the Chet means. All right? The 8th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is called the Chet. Right? Let's see. So, let's see what it means. The mystery of the Chet. According to the Jewish mystics, Chet is the letter of life. The letter of life, since Cham, life, Chea, living, both begin with this letter. Okay. True life comes from chesed, devotion, chet. 8 also is the number of grace. Cool. And the number of wisdom. Okay. Since Vav represents people or others, and Zain represents time, Chet is a picture of spending time in the community, which is cool. Chet also is the letter of light, since the Vav represents the Yashar light, the lesser light that descends from God, and Zain represents the greater light, the choser light that ascends or returns from God. Therefore, some of the Jewish mystics consider Chet to be the doorway of light from heaven. That's pretty cool, the doorway. Okay, so Chet and the doorway. The word Chet, see this little, it's like a pi symbol in short, which, well, you figured that makes so much sense, right? Pi, because it's like a never ending number. In short, a cham, life, the letter Chet can be seen to resemble a doorway where the blood of the lamb was daubed during the first Passover. And we know what that represents, right? The blood of the lamb on the doorway. The Passover lamb. That's Jesus. That's God being saved through grace. The blood of the lamb. So even the number 8 in Hebrew is connected to Jesus, which is really cool. And if you study the Hebrew, that, symbolically, all the letters have symbolical meaning. They're just not random letters like in the American alphabet. And a lot of the American alphabet actually is a descendant of the Hebrew alphabet. I'm sure most of y'all know that already. But yeah, so letters are symbols. And yeah, anywho. Okay, so I added those numbers up. So we got 24. The number 24 is associated with priesthood since composed of the multiple numbers of 12. It takes on some sort of 12 meaning, which is God's power and authority, as well as symbolizing a perfect foundation, except in a higher form. 24 is connected with the worship of God, especially at Jerusalem's temple. I know that Psalm 24, written by David, is a song extolling the Lord's creation of the earth. Also rejoices that he is the King of glory. So even when you add the numbers up, it's kind of referencing Jesus or God, one and the same. And then if you look at the symbol for Jupiter, it even looks like a 24. And we know that Jupiter's called the king planet. The sun is reference to Jesus, and so is Jupiter. I turned it around, and it was backwards. It's just like turning the inferior brain around. You see the negative connotation of it. In Scripture, part of the meaning of the number 42 is derived from his direct connection to the coming Antichrist. His evil efforts will last 42 months in the end time, and thus it's firmly associated with him. So 42 is the opposite of 24, and we get the opposite outcome. Correct? That was just a little fun fact, a little extra credit. And now we can see these three elements are very primary to the building blocks of life, and they're very important. And yeah, it was a killer video. Thank you for the information. I added to it. Hopefully, I didn't destroy it. Um, yeah. Anyways, if you're not saved and you want to get saved, if you confess with your mouth that the Lord Jesus Christ died and shed his blood to atone for your sins and resurrected on the third day, you are saved. All you got to do is just believe. And if you want to grow your faith, just study the Bible. That's how you grow your faith. The Bible guarantees that. We grow in faith by the word. All right? And hopefully this helped. This helped mineralize the the ground that you're growing in. I hope it did. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. You want me to do a specific topic, leave it in the comment section. And yeah, thank you for watching. Till next time.